And the business is a core piece of how we're filling the gap on the personal side. And so when we can get clarity on your personal life, then we can go back. We're in this kind of mutual back and forth with the business side where it's like, again, well, let's figure out the life that you want to live post sale and how much do we need in order to facilitate that life. And now,
no more excuses, no more branding band-aids. The art of positioning. Let's freaking go. Now's my time and I won't hesitate. If your goal is to increase your business's market value to sell, this episode is going to be a juicy one for you because we're about to get into saying bye-bye to revenue plateaus and making your business the apple in both investors and customers' eyes. And we've got on two brilliant experts to unpack not just things to avoid, but key actions that you can go and take today. One is the financial advisor who actually gets that your business and personal money need to have a serious relationship talk. Allie Beckmann, one of only around 800 fully independent women advisors across the states and knows everything there is to know about pirates. Please tell me that you have treasure chests hidden all about the place as a hobby. Like, I need to know.
Well, I can't tell you that, Beatrice, because
it's sad. I mean, like, can you give us a hint? Like, will there be maps?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like I have a new project for winter is to like create maps to potentially buried treasure chests or that lead nowhere. Both sound fun to watch people figure out.
That's hard.
My mind instantly went to like diving, like you were diving for treasure under the sea for some reason. That's just where my brain went. So I was like, I really want to scuba dive. So if you're a scuba diver, I really want to learn. No,
I'm not a scuba diver.
now you just need to learn just so that you can hide one under the ocean somewhere.
You know, maybe I'm gonna burst your bubbles right now. And pirates didn't really hide their treasure. kind of a myth.
No.
Because they spent it, you guys. Why would they hide it? They wanted it. They're not hiding it. They're spending it.
Yeah.
Right.
The hidden treasures are only the ones where they crashed. Right? I mean, they're
or they would hide them for like a short period of time, maybe, but like most of the time they're spending that shit. So
yeah, there you go.
I was 2 years old when I learned this, and now I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, you'll be forever changed.
Exactly. And in the other hot seat, we've got Alex Seydel, the M&A attorney turned business strategist who helps you grow your company to sell it someday. Alex played D1 soccer, which probably explains why she's so good at strategy and probably why she named her golden retriever Thumper. Oh, wait.
And like,
was that your victory dance or
no? I was just a Disney kid, and like my mom used to say when we were being mean to our siblings, like if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And it's a big Thumper line from the movie. And so my golden retriever is like, he just has that spirit. He's like the kindest, most loving being. So he, keeps me grounded and centered.
So if you're angry at one point, you just want to yell at somebody, you like look at Thumper and go, wait, because
absolutely. I actually do that. Like, hi, I need to take a breath and I need to center in you because you are such a nice positive reset of energy. He also knows when I need to cry before I know I need to cry.
Oh,
he will literally come over and just kind of sit by you in a certain way and just be like, you need me right now. And I'm like, yes, I do. Oh my God. And then like, like, yeah, he's incredible. He is a total gift.
Dogs they know. They freaking know.
All right.
Let's get straight in into increasing that market value. So what are the things that can negatively impact brand valuation? Or what are the things that business owners should avoid? What are the dangers?
I think we touched on this a little already with talking about Allie's brand is, I think, and coming from private practice law, where everybody knows like law firm is, Smith, Burke, Boyd, right? Like how is that a brand? It's not really one. Doesn't tell you much about why they should be the lawyers you choose or what type of experience you're going to have working with them. It's just the name you were given at birth. So I think but that really goes into if that brand is too much just you, just centered in, me. If my brand was Seydel Firm, it's not really going to have like Allie was talking about, a spirit, an ethos that feels like the work she's actually doing, that expression of her inner self and how she connects with her clients, how she helps them, how she supports them, the goals she's moving towards. Like you're losing so much opportunity by doing something like that, even though there are obviously many sections of industry like law firms that are kind of boring and continue that silly trend or silly old way of naming, I'd say.
And just a heads up for anyone who's listening, that story about Allie's redirection will be at the end of the episode. So it's a good reason to listen out for these bloopers.
Yes.
That is a brilliant point. I mean, another thing is the rebrands, or you're focusing too much on completely and drastically changing all of a sudden. And imagine that will hit, on a financial side, you've impacted trust, you've impacted loyalty, you've impacted, the association. We built a certain amount of association to that brand, whatever that might be, and then suddenly it's not there. It's like going to a supermarket looking for, your regular box of ice cream, and then suddenly it's not there, but it is there. They've just changed the packaging.
Totally. I think a lot of early stage businesses have that problem. I'm a big CPG. I love trying new brands that are coming out, doing alternative things. But they often go through a rebrand in that they get definitely advice to do that. And I actually will sometimes not be able to place them on the shelves, which is wild.
Wow.
Man. Have you seen that much, Allie?
I guess I haven't seen that personally, no. And if I'm working with a business owner, I would probably advise against that. Or, I guess, because back to your original question, when I think about do's and don'ts of building valuation, I'm always encouraging people to think about this way sooner than they think they need to. Thinking about it 5 years out, right? Or starting with the end in mind as soon as you can, because knowing where you're going is going to inform how you get there. And so, and when we talk about increasing value, consistency and time really matters for that external valuation. How long have your books been clean? Is it you just got them cleaned to prepare for this valuation, but then, the 3 years prior, they were a mess and unreadable? Oftentimes, valuations and even potential sellers, they want to see clean books and records for the last few years, right? That this is a stable business. It is consistent. And that consistency, whether it's, through really honing in and knowing your brand, knowing your niche, that, like you said, Beatrice, it will be reflected in your financials. So then seeing that steady, consistent financial data for years, 2 to 3 years, right, is going to increase what you're ultimately valued at and what you could potentially sell for. So I'm always encouraging people to think about this sooner rather than later. There's no ready light bulb that goes off. It's something that we have to choose. We have to choose when we want to be ready by, and then we can reverse engineer. Like I said, like know where we're going, get clear on that, and we can dig into like what that means. And then reverse engineer the plan to get to that point. It's not like, oh, I'll just do it when it feels ready, when the business feels stable. Like, what is that? That's not a thing. It's like we have to create those conditions for ourselves.
So what we're saying is go through the systems, watch out for if the SOPs are clear or not, or if they've been written, processes, execution.
Yep.
These are things like, imagine, going through the businesses as you guys do, right? It's like having this checklist and then seeing if there's blanks in those areas and going through, hey, this process isn't there, or the brand isn't very clear. Like there isn't a strategy in terms of, okay, cool, here's like a guidebook, but like actually having what does that actually look like in play? How is the rest of the team taking that on board is something that, we need to watch out for.
Yeah. And we actually do like an exit readiness assessment for that exact thing, right? And it's a really nice thing that we offer to just walk through with our clients who are thinking about it, right? And just like Allie said, hopefully we're working with them, we say 3 to 5 years before exit. That's our goal. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that might not be the context, but if you're a proactive, really like thinking intentionally and thoughtfully about where you want to go, and just like Allie, just building backwards, and then building that exit strategy. And we do that value assessment or exit readiness assessment. And what it does is it does exactly what you were saying, Beatrice. It helps you expose or walk through basically like, what are some of these characteristics that a buyer's looking for? Mm-hmm. And they are a bunch of things, right? We know, okay, we know they want growing revenue. We know they want growing EBITDA. But how strong is the brand story? How strong is the executive leadership team? How are they executing on SOPs? And then what it does is that report actually gives you a strategic readiness score, an exit readiness score. And it'll say in 3 categories. It'll be like, here's the things that if you were to walk out to the market right now would be value adds. Let's say your books are really clean. You have really strong financials. And then middle ones are like value detractors. So right now, if you were to walk out, you would get less because of these things. And then the third category is like deal killers. Like when that buyer comes and looks under the hood, if they find these couple things, so let's say your legal house is pretty messy. It's not really clear if you gave 10% options to 2 different employees. Something like that, right? Where a buyer would get really uncomfortable about, is this actually a business I want to buy, and walk away. So that report is something that really helps you kind of assess all those pieces, especially because you might not, you're sitting, an owner is there to run their business, to grow it, to solve all the problems that they're solving with their company. But if you've never been through an exit before, you might not think about all the things that a buyer would see and want to assess as, this makes this company a truly transferable asset that I want to buy, that I believe I can step into and grow, and then eventually, transition myself.
Exactly. And that's like one of the very big red flags there. It's like, hey, have we got the legal side cleared up? Like, is it well written out? Especially with partnerships, what I've seen.
Yes.
If you have a business partner.
Yes.
Having that clearly written out. Or say, for example, you're working with like influencers or other kind of dynamic. Are those written out? What are the other red flags that you guys have seen?
Customer concentration is a really big one. So like if you only have, let's say 2 clients make up 70% of your revenue. Oof. That's really high risk. If I'm going to step in, and that also, if that relationship is primarily, let's say a key woman risk would be if I'm the owner and that relationship is really personal to me. Well, if I step away, and there's a new owner in there, how does that owner get comfortable to really be confident that that customer and that revenue will stick? So some of the ways and I know we're getting into this later, but some of the ways we solve that is like, are those contracts papered if possible? What do the terms of those contracts say? Can we put some things in place, even if it is the case where there's a little higher customer concentration than ideal? What are some of the things we can do to make that buyer feel comfortable that that revenue and those customers are sticky? They're going to stay through that transition.
Yeah. I also think, I'm always focused primarily on the financials and have a unique lens, right? Because I'm working with the business owners on their personal finances. And then I'm looking at the business to ensure the business is basically supporting their life, right? So I have a really specific lens when I'm looking at businesses and working with business owners, preparing them for exit. Something that I notice come up a lot with the business owners I do work with, though, is also, again, back to operations and systems and kind of like delegation concentration or lack of, right? Like, how involved is the owner still in the day-to-day? How much is the owner executing operations that could be delegated? How well are they removing themselves from those day-to-day operations and little things so that, again, they're building the business, but setting it up to be largely self-managed or managed by people who are not themselves. I think that's, one, it helps the buyer, again, like Alex is saying, like, is this a transferable asset? Can someone come in and the business will continue to operate with new leadership coming in at the top? But also, it helps the business owner. It helps the business owner prepare for that transition, removing themselves from that day to day. I love what Alex said. It's like, if you've never gone through an exit before, there's things you're not going to be thinking about from the buyer side, but you're also not thinking about things potentially from that personal side. Like, there are so many things that get missed with the rest of your life and kind of making sure the rest of your systems are set up to prepare for this exit, so that you're transferable. Like, you can transfer into the next phase of your life. And a lot of business owners forget about that really key piece. Again, so it's like, the sooner you can start to just like find opportunities to remove yourself from more and more of that day to day and those like critical operations, the easier it's going to be on you in the transition and the buyer.
And I think, Allie, to build on that too, I think that's such a two-pronged piece where, like, working together with Allie, helping a buyer prepare both their personal financial house, right, which is her wheelhouse. She's focusing over there. We're focusing a little more on the business side on the financials and some systems over there. But adding to that readiness of like their mindset. Yes, systems, processes, executive leadership, absolutely. I think mindset is sometimes the hardest part, because if this is your baby and you've been growing it for 5, 10, 15 years, there's parts of your identity wrapped in here. There's parts of the way, like Allie's saying, like different parts of your life that you're just so used to operating as a function of you being the owner operator, that like, I think there's often so much work to be done there. And it's also really nice to have someone on your team who's focusing on, like, we call it our exit team, right? Like, Allie is focusing on that personal house. She's making sure they're structurally sound and positioned to take advantage, of an exit, whether that be tax considerations or succession planning for family, all of those things. Like, that's her wheelhouse. We're like, great, she's got that under control. We're over here doing that on the business side. But I think we're probably both doing mindset support, like, with what that really looks and feels like from the owner's perspective. And what do they want?
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many folks that I helped transition. I helped them sell their business. I would chat with them 6 months or a year later, and they'd be like, I wish I did it differently. And it's not that they necessarily wish they didn't sell, but they just didn't know what they didn't know, or maybe they hadn't put a lot of proactive time into thinking about what did they want their exit to look and feel like.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what Allie's talking about. Like those pieces of both process and mindset that come together so interwoven into, helping support them through what is hopefully successful
I have like a 5-3-1 year kind of checklist.
Successful.
I have like a 5-3-1 year
after the
kind of checklist of like, here's the things to be thinking about 5-3-1 year out. The first thing in that 5-year, like the very first task is reflect on your values and your post-sale vision. Like, I think we have to, as advisors and as that team, we have to really encourage the business owner to like come back to themselves, recenter. What matters to you as a person? What do you care about in this life? What do you want your life to be like after this sale? Because if we're only focused on the numbers or the metrics, that is not, like, money is exciting and money can facilitate. But at the end of the day, money, it doesn't go deep, right? Money isn't the thing that creates fulfillment. We have to imbue meaning into the numbers, and that's up to us. And, hopefully having advisors who can support you through that, which is why I love like working with people like Alex, where we are able to hold those conversations around the emotional and the mental side of things, because at the end of the day, that's the stuff that matters. Emotions drive behavior, behavior drives results. So
absolutely.
If we're not integrating,
I love that. I didn't know that you do that, and I love that you do that.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I love that. I didn't know that you do that, and I love that you do that because you do something similar. And I will ask sometimes. I'll be like, look, if you're having a tough time, like I actually am going to ask you to close your eyes and picture your life. Let's say if your exit plan is 5 years from now, like I want to know, like, where do you live? What type of house does it look like? What are your family systems looking like? Yeah. I want you to get super tangible. I want to be like, what do you want to wake up and eat every day? Yeah. If you're an exerciser, how do you want to work out? Right? Like, because I think that day-to-day vision, again, exactly what Al said too, working from there backwards, it informs so much about how we execute that exit. So what type of buyers do they want? What do they care about in a sale? Is it legacy? Is it employees first? Is it, it's okay if I do want the highest purchase price I can get. Okay. That's all pieces of information that I think when we do that visioning and values exercise in the beginning, gives us so much more direction to help support them and guide them to the who, the when, the how, and even the where of what that transaction actually, when it happens and how it happens.
Yeah, which ultimately puts you back in the seat of choice, where instead I feel like it's so easy to get caught up in like, oh, I just need to like sell for as much as I can. And it's like so vague, but it's like, well, what if we knew exactly what your minimum net sale was? What if we knew that through like doing the personal financial planning and having time to prepare so that you know how much you need to exit for that lifestyle? But then again, it's like Alex is saying, you're the one identifying what matters to you, which then we can structure the sale and the strategy around that, which instead of you just kind of outsourcing your power to like needing someone to buy for the highest price, now you're actually choosing what matters so that, we can ideally structure the process and the exit in a way that feels fulfilling and really good and just creates more of that empowerment, that choice in the process.
And another big roadblock, so we've got, make sure that you've got those experts in place that are looking into, let's make sure that your mindset is there, that you're looking forward. But what I also see is how they're positioned in the market, right? Are they just another? Are they another plumber, another bookkeeper, another accountant? Beyond just differentiating through, hey, we're using AI, or hey, we have better service. To me, like when I'm talking to businesses that are looking to buy other businesses, they're like, oh, we want something which is a little bit different, and having it as just, okay, we provide that better service, or we're a plumber in
and to bring
Minnesota.
it full circle to where we started this conversation.
We're a plumber in
and to
Minnesota.
bring it full circle to where we started this conversation. The whole reason you want to connect with someone like Alex, right, 3 to 5 years out, is that if you do need to make those tweaks to your positioning to make it that much stronger, sometimes there's a bit of an adjustment period, right, where people catch up to the new positioning or to whatever you're changing to really prime yourself for that exit. So then you have that time to, dig the groove a little deeper with that positioning. How are you? Why do people think of you, the plumber in Minnesota? Like, what makes you different? Give people time to buy into that story and catch up to that positioning before you exit. All the more reason to just start thinking about this sooner rather than later.
So this always, a lot of people consider brand, or even they consider marketing or customer relationships intangible. How would you guys actually go into creating what does that value, those intangible assets look
we
like?
start with what is the story,
brand equity or customer relationships or
the
IP,
hypothetical is really good. We start with what is the story. So the hypothetical is really good. If you right now had to go into a bank or go to an investor to raise capital or take out a loan, that bank is going to want to understand who you are and who is the business. How do you start saying that? Yeah, sure, you send financials, which are really important because that's what they're going to underwrite. But really, they need to be able to tell a story about who you are. So that's brand story. We actually ask, do you have a piece of paper with your brand story written on it somewhere? That right now, if I said, hey, there's a bank that wants to give you $1 million loan, would you have that piece of paper to send to them? And if not, that's where we've got to start. It has to be that 30,000 feet. It's it's kind of your company's elevator pitch, right? Hopefully it's a little more robust than that. But if I have a short period of time to communicate the most important information about who you are and why you're different, is to me exactly the same as where you start with a buyer. And when those first conversations with a potential buyer to, like you said, Beatrice, why buy me, the plumber in Minnesota, versus the other 10 plumbers in Minnesota in my town?
I love that, Alex. I think, again, it speaks to that point of the numbers are their own way of telling a story, but then having your brand story to really inform the numbers and inform a person who doesn't know you, who doesn't know your business, give them the story so that it's like the little placard when you go look at a piece of abstract art. You could look at that piece of art and be like, I could maybe come up with my own story of what that means. But if there's a little explainer paragraph next to it, it gives you an insight into what the artist was thinking when they made that piece of art. And you're like, oh, okay, now I see it. Now I get it a little bit better. And when you have that kind of emotional story behind the numbers, you can then help the person who's reading the story inside of your numbers be like, oh, I see. That's why their profit margins look like such and such, right? They can start to see the customer loyalty. They can start to see those things then in the numbers, in operating efficiencies, in the way that you structure your expenses on your P&L sheet, in the way you've positioned your debt leverage on your balance sheet, right? The brand story can help inform the way someone else is making meaning out of your numbers instead of them just having to guess as to why things are the way that they are, or why your profit margins, telling the journey of kind of where they started and where they are now, right? It can, again, gives you more power in how people are receiving and understanding your brand.
Hell yes. And especially, Allie, from your side, that bringing in the values, and this is something that it's not spoken about enough. And, from a finance side as well, that it really impacts the direction of the business. It impacts, how you approach the numbers of the business.
And again, if we're talking about someone else coming in and looking at that, they want to not only understand how the values fit and the culture fit in the company, and the story of how it's, ebbed and flowed like any business would. But it also needs to understand that and feel confident in that, again, to step in and with the idea to grow it, with the idea to continue it. And we do have a lot of clients where values aligned buyers are really important. We have 3 we're working with right now who are just like, if they don't get us, if they don't get the business values wise, they're not our buyer. And they're willing to be patient enough. Thank goodness they're not in a pressed space. They're not in a have to sell by the end of the year, but they get this time and opportunity to think about those things and use that as an assessment, which is like, it makes me so happy to support someone like that, because again, it just maximizes the likelihood that when we do the deal, when we get the deal done, they'll be much more aligned with that result. It will feel so much better within themselves and whatever they're about to do next.
So I'm going to take a quick moment right now to share a trend I've noticed in businesses that have seen their revenues plateau recently. Regardless of increased ad spend, fresh websites, and new sales hire. The trend? Rebranding. Except in over 50% of cases, they do more damage to the market value and brand trust, which, well, as we discussed, affects a business ability to exit on a high. The first step to avoiding that fate, finding the gaps in your brand performance. I've built out a brand health check that shows you where yours might lie, plus immediate actionables to work on yours straight away without a sales pitch attached. Get your access from the show notes. All right. So what does it take to exit? What are the actions? What is the nitty-gritty? And I know that you guys have gone into this briefly, where it's like, okay, we need to plan this out in advance, and we need to get into the why, the how. I know you mentioned this, but what's the nitty-gritty? What's the actions that they can go, who's listening right now? What kind of actions can they do?
Step 1 is call someone like Alex. Well, but that's my first step. If honestly, if I'm working with a business owner and they're serious about exiting, I am trying to get them connected with at least a valuation expert to get an actual valuation done, not just what they think, as soon as possible, so that we just know where we're starting from. And so ideally that's, again, 3 to 5 years out. I'm always trying to get it closer to the 5-year mark, because you just never know. And so, just getting that awareness, we have to get aware. So that's usually my first step. And then it's building the rest of the team out from there, which I think we can talk about who is that team, but let Alex talk if she wants to talk about kind of that first step of getting the valuation done.
Oh, I think absolutely. I think it's all about assessing where you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the mindset pieces we've talked about. What are you actually desiring? Where are we right now? Both valuation wise, again, what is the context for, I guess just it's the exit readiness health checkup, right? That's what we do. I just did pulse, take your pulse, take your pulse on where you're at and what you want. And I think that has to be the first step before you ever start even assessing what needs to shift or change or how we build the plan going forward.
Yeah.
Because I think that data collection, both mindset, financials, desires, all informs what we do on step 2 through 10.
Yeah. And
so I think that has to be the place. But Allie is right. Second step for me is, okay, who do you have supporting you right now? Who's taking, again, the number of people, you'd be shocked. We have a CEO. She's a 60% owner. She had grown the business she was at 4 million at the end of last year. She's on track to be close to 12 this year. She is absolutely killing it. But because of those numbers, well, not because I got ahead of myself. I asked her, who's supporting you on your personal side right now? And I got a person. I got one. Okay, cool. I'd love to just be introduced. Let me chat. it's not because I want to help with that. It's because I think there's powerful ways that we can work together to make sure you're personally situated to maximize the exit that we're planning for. And I finally got her to admit to me about 6 months later that she didn't have someone on her team that was or she did, but it was someone who was really used to advising her at like the 1 million, 2 million CEO. She really needed someone who with a little more sophistication, a little more understanding of the tools and resources available to her for her personal house. She had 3 kids under 10. They had no trust. She has, multiple different properties in multiple different states. There were all these personal intricacies of her life that really needed someone like Allie. So instantly, literally call up Allie. Hey, okay, this is the situation. We need to show her why your sophisticated support on that personal side is really important to start now and not 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Including things like, if we want to get super nerdy, we know the rules just changed on QSBS, which is qualified stock. I mess up the acronym, but it's an important acronym that helps basically owners protect a portion of the proceeds of a sale. But the old rule was they had to hold the company for 5 years.
Right.
But the rules just changed, and now you actually get some gradual benefits over time that can actually be impacted if you were to properly position the company to take advantage of it at both the 3-year mark and the 1-year mark. So there's a little more flexibility in that. So something like that, which is something that we ask our owners, like, do you know about QSBS? Has your wealth advisor or your financial planner helped you think about if that's something that you might want to position to do?
And that's why, again, people, it's so easy to just like be inside of our own Coke bottle and not see what's beyond it. And I think it must go in tandem with like getting clarity on where you're at in the business now and getting clarity on where you're at personally now. We need to understand like the current state of both things so that we can understand what needs to shift on both sides so that they're still working towards the same goal. And, again, I mean, I want every business owner to sell, but the stats on successful sales are low. Yeah. I think the last time I checked, it was like 25% of businesses that go to market sell. And so on the personal side of things, that's also part of the job. It's not just planning for growth, it's risk mitigating. And so what do we need to be doing to prepare for a successful exit and have that runway to take advantage of the 5, 3, 1 year opportunities in front of us? But also, how are we protecting you if it doesn't go to plan? Like how many times do things go exactly according to our plans? And so we want to just have time to, just like Alex is saying on the business, where are we today? Where do we want to be? What are the gaps? And how do we start to solve them? We're doing that on the personal side simultaneously. And the business is a core piece of how we're filling the gap on the personal side. And so when we can get clarity on your personal life, then we can go back. We're in this kind of mutual back and forth with the business side where it's like, again, well, let's figure out the life that you want to live post-sale and how much do we need in order to facilitate that life. And now we're like, okay, great. This is how much we need. How close are we from the valuation side? Are we 3 million off? Are we 10 million off? Like, what's our gap that we need to start solving for on the business? And that just creates so much more focus around the strategy of how we're going to get there rather than like, well, we just need to grow. It's like, well, we need to grow by 2 million in revenue. Okay, great. Now let's start figuring out how we're going to do that. And so getting clear on the personal side, and are there any holes? Do we need to set up like estate planning, right? So the key people, I would say you got to get on that team. You want your business and exit strategist. You want a personal financial planner and wealth manager. You want an estate attorney so that we can execute on some of these opportunities on like the trust and planning side of things. You want a good tax person, a CPA person, right? That's going to be a core. Probably want a banker in there as well. Create those relationships with bankers early. So it's like, get your team together sooner rather than later, because then ideally the team is communicating on your behalf and you don't have to keep holding all of these parts. They're thinking about things that you're not thinking about. So you want to it's like we're building our foundation, and getting the team in place is such a critical part of the foundation to just make everybody's lives a lot easier, smoother, and more optimized.
I know that each case is different in the approach, and it's really understanding what is their direction, what is the goals, what is that why. But can you give some examples of how businesses have increased their value in order to sell? What are the gaps that they've filled to do that?
Yeah, it depends on where they're coming from when they connect with me. But so I'm working with a business owner who has grown really fast. And, I'm a personal financial advisor, but I cross that bridge into like personal CFO light world. So, right, I look at their P&Ls, I look at their balance sheets. I'm looking for opportunities to optimize cash flow in the business, and clean things up. And their bookkeeping was an utter nightmare, unreadable. Like, we had no data. And when we don't have clear data, we can't make clear plans. And so I was able to go in there, and I had questions around operating efficiency, expenses, labor costs, profit margins. And I'm like, I'm seeing some red flags here. And the business owner was like, yep, I hear you. And like, the books were such a mess that we were totally stalled on being able to understand, well, what is your actual profit margin? Because then that was holding us up on like, well, what should you be paying yourself and how much should you be taking home? And what it was, because we didn't have clear data, it was literally blocking everything else from being able to move forward from a strategic perspective. So this is what I do is I'll like spot those opportunities from a high level and be like, you need a better bookkeeper, And so like, let's find you a bookkeeper. And then I connected her with a business advisor to be like, well, let's get your books cleaned up and let's start working with someone who's going to get more into the weeds than I will on strategy to start increasing that profit margin. So for the last couple years, she's been working diligently to get her books cleaned up so that we can have clear data both currently and from the past couple years, so that then we can start understanding like, where are the true gaps. They were able to streamline their labor costs in a significant way. They really overhauled that. She was able to start like delegating more. Once we got clear on that foundational data and cash flow, bookkeeping, accounting records, it opened up the gates for them to start making so much more progress in all these other ways that continued to move the needle forward. So that's one example of, working with someone and being able to spot these red flags and missed opportunities, and then putting them in the right position, connecting them with the right providers so that we can all work together to make sure we're moving toward the place that we're all trying to go.
And to loop that back, Allie's example, to loop it back, if that person had waited, and I know we're killing this point, but it's because it's so powerful. If that person had waited and the buyer had come and looked under the hood and there's an LOI in place and those were the financials they found, the buyer would have walked away. That falls in the deal killer category. Deal killer category, financials, clean, clear story on me being able to understand where you've been and where you're going financially and why I should be buying the business. And then legal house. Deal killer too. So you don't have an operating, Beatrice, you mentioned like your partnership. You don't have an operating agreement in your partnership. Okay. That's a kind of a immediate red flag. You have a profit sharing plan, but it's not written down. Do some of these employees own equity? Do you have that same example, company going from 4 million to 12 million in annual revenue. So their monthly recurring revenue was really strong. Those clients were there, they stuck, they rose, she's getting close to $1 million in monthly recurring revenue, no contracts. So again, how do I tell that story to the buyer that this is really truly sticky revenue, I get them to sign this contract. So working with her right now, literally to create that form and have those conversations with your clients about how we even put those in place, so that when, again, buyer comes in, looks under the door or looks under the hood and sees the financials there that are strong. Oh, that monthly recurring revenue is awesome. Yep. And here's the contracts I have that show you, that these are a yearly commitment to being, this selected vendor.
So what we're saying here, let's assume that they're not going to immediately hire someone to help with this. But if they want to have a look at where they're at and where there might be potential points to add value, add like that revenue to make up those millions of dollars to get to that point of being like attractive. You say, look at the books, look at legal, like the contracts. Are there any other areas that they could go, say, for example, today and be like, hey, what is the situation here?
Two big ones we've hit on a little bit. Owner dependence. We've talked a lot about owner dependence, taking a look at how much risk is built. So what is the institutional knowledge that lives and breathes in my head? What do the relationships look like? How much can I take that from my head, put it onto paper, talk to my team about it, make sure that those SOPs are being followed? So that's both like, there's a lot of flavor to what owner dependence means, but that's something you can be just thinking about. Think about, what does your daily week look like? How much am I so in the business that right now, if I were to go on a trip to Europe for 3 weeks, would the business run without me? And like, go through that hypothetical exercise. It will help you notice the parts of the business that are relying on you. And from that, you can start building SOPs and processes that come and get developed and then hopefully get adopted and practiced by your team.
I actually see that could be taken in the team as well. And I've seen this happen frequently, where certain members of the team hold onto a lot of the information. And say, for example, either they're sick or they suddenly just quit or they don't show up. Then that part of the business is left hanging. And there was no processes in place, for somebody else to jump in, or even the owner, to jump in and be like, what were they up to? What's going on? Like, what is the normal practice?
Yeah.
Totally.
This is something I talk about a lot with my business owners, is the succession, the intended and unintended succession planning. When things happen that we can't predict, again, like, we can make plans, but it is rare that they will go exactly according to that one plan. And so there are tools in the financial world that we can put in place to ease that risk and mitigate that risk of a key employee leaving, both in terms of operations, but also in terms of certain like products and policies, like getting insurance on key people, right? So that like if they leave or if they die unexpectedly, the business has it will get an injection of cash to support the dip in revenue that comes from losing a critical person in the team. And so talk about adding value, those little details that business owners never want to think about or do. It's like the lowest priority on their list. But again, the story that tells to a potential buyer is that we've thought about these things. We have these policies in place that protect the business in the event of an unexpected thing happening that could potentially be detrimental had we not planned ahead for this. Those policies will carry over through the sale on those key people. There's also ways to incentivize employees to stick around in very special ways, So it's like there's tons of tools, but it all comes back to like being willing to sit down and get real with where you're at right now and approaching the gaps and the holes, like asking someone to be like, yeah, start poking holes because I want to fill the holes. But that takes the right mindset to be able to kind of like come to that seat, to just start looking for weaknesses. But if you're not ready to like bring someone else in yet, I mean, do that exercise yourself. You know your business better than anyone else. So just like have a worst case scenario day where you're just like, what could go wrong? Like, what are all the things that could potentially go wrong? And write them down. It's like an existential dread list, just like brain dump it. Spend, set a timer so you don't get lost in that vortex, but list all of the things that could go wrong internally, externally, that could potentially impact your value, your revenue, and then see what's within your power today to start fixing and plugging those holes. Again, the story that tells to a buyer shows, one, like how much you've been thinking about this and preparing for it, but it gives them confidence that a lot of those systems will then be able to be transferred when they take it over. You've already thought about business succession planning, business continuity planning, right? That's communicating a very strong story to a potential buyer.
And it allows you the opportunity to proactively, let's say we have several clients right now that want to sell to their employees. Some ESOP is a very well-known structure, but there's a lot of businesses that really don't qualify for an ESOP. They can't really actually make that happen for several different kind of complex reasons. But there are ways you can still sell to your employees or your leadership team in different ways, but it takes some planning and it takes some incentive alignment. So what Allie's talking about, like, yeah, absolutely. If you have that key person risk, and how to kind of some ways to address the risk to de-risk, there's also ways to incentive align. So if we think let's say your COO and CFO are really valuable to you. And you're like, look, if they walked away, if I was doing Allie's list and they walked away right now, I would be real stuck and real shit out of luck is what I was going to say. And so, okay, what's a way, not only can we, protect and de-risk on the insurance side or other strategies, we can also align some positive, proactive sentiments by actually saying, okay, maybe I do grant them a little bit of equity that vests over time. I want them to be 5% owners in the next 2 years. We can make that structurally a grant of equity, saying, hey, to them, you go to that CFO and COO and say, I believe in you so much and you're such a critical part of my team. And I really want this to possibly work to sell to you guys as a team in the future. And I am willing to put my own ownership on the line to do it. So like structuring, thinking about the ways that you can do that to align those incentives 3 to 5 years out, it really shows people your belief in them, you're betting on them, and you want to make this work together. So there's different ways you can do that, right? You can create phantom equity. You can grant real equity. You could do a complex profit sharing system that, again, really ensures that when the business does well, so do they. I mean, think how much loyalty that builds in a business and how much now, if that's really what you want, they're going to be so much more ready and mentally able and excited to buy into what you've created and then take it and continue your legacy on.
Hell, I mean, you could even start that earlier than 3 to 5 years out, right? Like if you're thinking about this in, say, for example, you've been doing business for a decade, 2 decades, like, okay, I've got this team that they're integral to the business. They make up why customers keep coming back. And, if you also want to be able to sell that business, you maybe want to get them in to that, what you were just mentioning there, Alex. And okay, so I know that there's no big signboard saying, hey, you're ready to exit, your business is strong enough. But beyond, revenue multiples, are there any other financial metrics or other metrics that prove that brand strength to buyers?
We did talk a little bit about, or you mentioned, Beatrice, earlier, IP. And I do think with companies where the brand is so much more really important to what they are, what is your IP?
Yeah.
How is it protected? Is your trademark, your logo, your brand, is that trademarked? If you have something very proprietary, is it patented?
Right.
What do all the brand assets look like with respect to if I had to go in and be like, you know what, we can defend this brand and it's defensible against not only my legal right, but my competitors. So I'm an identifiable brand in the market and this is why. So, right, like we ask like, how defensible is your brand? And there are a couple different pieces, right? The physical legal protections, and then also like reputational and other types of goodwill considerations about what makes that brand defensible.
I love that perspective of it. It makes me think of something I was thinking about earlier when we think about like adding value and like, what are these signs? It's like, what are people saying? What do people outside of your business say? How are people talking about your business? Again, like that's something we have to think about when we think about removing ourselves from it, right? We're going to be the biggest cheerleader for our business. We're going to be the ones like as the owner talking about it the most, talking about it the best. And, and then ideally our team is talking it up. And then ideally our clients are talking it up. But how are people who are seeing your brand, who've heard of your brand, but are not a client yet? How are people talking about your business who are outside of your business? And that's more intangible. I know we're talking about kind of like metrics and stuff, right? But there, again, are ways to measure this, right? It's social media, it's digital presence, it's all these kinds of digital checklists, market share, right? Depending on the size of your business and where you're at in that spectrum. So remembering to, again, just like there's so much risk on owner dependence and just that owner kind of myopicness, where we're just too close. And I think we have to really stretch ourselves to put ourselves in the position of someone who's interacting with our brand for the first time or hearing about it, and always considering the audience. How are people experiencing our brand who are just meeting us? How do people talk about it who don't know us really well? And getting a pulse on that.
I mean, there's a lot of these metrics that you can test out, even in person, right? When people are calling in, like, hey, so, how did you hear about us? Yeah, look, it's said a lot, but there's a good reason for it being said a lot, because then you're tracking how well people know you and how much they're like, what you in your mind, what you're associating the brand to and what they're associating the brand to. Do those overlap? Are they the same thing? And the mentions, is your brand being mentioned with those words, those associations? And so to combine what you guys have said, like, it sounds like it is very much just checking that documentation is in place, right? It's like, hey, are there all the contracts in place? Is the brand side protected and fully in place? From the finance side, are the books covered, right? And
insurance
for the business. So like to make sure that everything is covered well in advance, yeah?
Yes. Insurance on the business side, insurance on the personal side. Again, it goes hand in hand with like growing. There's also risk protection. So some of those key person policies or incentives can come through form of very particular insurance policies. So kind of looking, again, at strategy, planning for strategy and foundation, but also risk mitigation and protection. And insurance does a lot of that. Also cyber insurance on the business, right? That becomes more and more and more important. So just making sure you have the correct business insurance and protection in place. Poking those holes.
Yeah, literally, one of my clients calls me the professional aerator because I want to be the person that in a friendly way comes to the meeting and asks you the hard questions.
Yeah.
And some that you don't want to answer, or some that, again, maybe you've not even thought about, especially if we kind of unpeel the onion and get a couple layers deeper. When you often think the problem in your business is X. And after a few questions and a little bit of discussion, you actually realize it's not X at all. It's like Z over here. That was like feeding, like Allie talked about, the fact that the data on the books, bookkeeping wise, were so poor that was one of those examples, right? Over here, you're like, man, our profit margins or our investment in this marketing isn't, blank. But you didn't even have information to assess that.
Exactly.
So just like, I think that type of exercise and having, again, experts who are just on your team, like, right? Like my goal is to help you get back to when you're in growth mode, building the parts of your business you love, the parts of your business that made you create this in the first place, and trying to reduce all that noise around you. Whether that is, we've talked about delegation, we've talked about processes, we've talked about, getting stuck on, again, this often is a lot of our clients are like stuck in one or two parts of their business. Okay. Maybe if they had that bookkeeper, but they really needed someone a little more advanced, a controller or a fractional CFO, helping them assess, okay, where you're getting stuck. There's a huge block here and it's causing a lot of anxious energy. It's causing the 2 a.m. waking up in the middle of the night stuff because it's not fun to do that. I don't love accounting. Like, it's not my favorite place to be either. So let's make sure we get you either the processes in place or the support you need, helping folks identify who they need to hire, who might be a good fit, introducing them. Allie's very good at this. Like, her network is big and broad, and she can help you assess, like, okay, you know what, that bookkeeper, okay, we got them in place, and now we might need that little more sophisticated analysis and proactive planning. So let's see if we can get you a controller or a fractional CFO would be a good fit.
I've noticed the same sort of thing as well with like people so focused on the marketing. Okay, maybe we need to try, a new website. Maybe we need to put in more ads. Maybe we need to change the wording. But at the end of the day, there's no basis to guide those things because the brand, what was discussed, having that clear position which guides everything else, all these other decisions in the values, it wasn't there.
Another thing I'm going to bring that, Beatrice, you just reminded me to bring it back to something we talked about a little while ago, was a lot of buyers also come from places where you already live, where your business already lives. So competitors, someone in your vertical chain, so a client or a supplier. So like that brand reputation, that brand strength, all of that goes so much into the fact that you may even be creating buyers you don't even know, potential buyers you don't even realize. Right now we have a client who literally has someone they sell to that wants to buy from them and someone that they get supply that wants to buy from them. Because there's and it's a very niche, unique product. It's space situational awareness. So it's satellites and telescopes. It's very, very technical. You're not going to be often able to have a third party person. Like, I wouldn't be able to step in and buy that business, own and operate it with enough sophistication. But someone in their sphere likely will be able to.
Wow.
So it's a value add-on. So that's so much tied into that brand awareness, that reputational parts, those parts that, like, okay, wait, a competitor's hearing that we want to sell and they're interested. And again, they go look under the hood and they're like, man, this is a brand we still could operate just even as a separate department, even if we are directly competitive in a portion of our business.
Ooh, I love that. And okay, I'm curious about one thing. How can one attract investors instead of hunting for them? So, and also in the sense of acquisition compared to standalone, attracting them.
Boots on the ground do more power, I think, than anything. You have to get out and you have to get out. So you're not it's the quality of the searching, not the lack of the searching. You have to search. You have to go out. You have to take, if you're raising capital or looking to sell, you're going to be taking a lot of meetings. And you got to be able to understand that, like, a lot of those meetings are going to be people that aren't your folks. not your buyer, not your investor. That's okay. So like the mentality about doing that and the way of doing that and the confidence of doing that is really important. And I think what that does, Beatrice, is it does exude confidence. Let's say this investor maybe isn't a good fit for me for any given reason. But that investor feels my energy, feels that confidence, feels my readiness, and is like, you know what? I have someone else that might be interested, that might be a good fit for you, and they connect you. Right? It's the power of that. Like it's power of you've got to do boots on the ground. You've got to have the meetings. You've got to push yourself to go beyond your comfort zone. And that's when I think the magic starts to happen. People come to you. You start attracting connections that you couldn't even see from that one meeting.
I agree. And I'll take it back one step further, which is again, like know the fuck out of yourself and your values.
Hell yeah.
So that when you're taking those meetings, you're clear as fuck,
Hell yeah.
you know, because that is what attracts. It's the energy. It is that's what, you know, fuels that exuding of confidence. It's because you know yourself, you know your values, both, you know, figuratively and literally. And you are here to share that. You've got like clear channels for that core of who you are to be expressed. And so that takes a lot of self-work, and it takes a lot of self-work and practice. Because once you're in that place of like boots on the ground meeting, like it's hard, y'all. I mean, this is hard. Again, 25% of businesses that go to market sell. So you got to work for it. But I think creating that internal foundation of self-awareness, business self-awareness, personal values, business values, knowing, like spending time, like Alex is saying, like spending time visioning. What do you want this to look like? What do you want it to feel like? Who is that business partner? Call them in like as soon as you can so that you're aligning with that energy and frequency. That's how they find you. They're like, yes, that. Because that they're going to have that energy. They're going to be able to feel it in you. And so you have to move through the world when you're doing the boots on the ground with that sense of confidence. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of practice. Sitting and being in that space, especially when things get stressful. So just don't underestimate the power of like your self work, your mind work, your emotional work, because that's the thing that's going to be memorable. That's the differentiator when you're out there. That's the thing that people are like, wow, I remember her, you know, because it's energetic. It's communicating beyond. It's the nonverbal communication. You know, like people only hear like 5 to 7% of the words you say when we communicate. More than 50% of it is nonverbal. So it matters how you show up, you know?
And I would say, Al, too, even to take that one step further, that space, being there and knowing that and having that clarity and that certainty about self allows you also to say no more easily.
Yes.
So when the investor or the buyer or the business partner isn't right for you, you feel it and know it. So it's not only just the calling in, it's that you trust your gut. You trust that what you're doing, hey, something about that felt off. I don't know quite what it was, but it wasn't right. I know that when I feel that way, that's a signal and a sign that I should trust. And then I go on to the next meeting.
Yeah.
And right, as opposed to someone who gets dysregulated deeply by a no, or starts to internalize self-worth from a no, you know, right? If you're in that centered aligned place, that is going to be way less powerful and way easier to set aside and say, okay, that just wasn't my human. That's okay. On to the next.
Totally.
Oh, hell yeah. I love that. And that's, a lot of people say, oh, you know, this mindset work is just, you know, it's the fluff side of things, but it really comes deeply into it. And it kind of, that leads me into the last question that I ask everybody on all the episodes that we've been on. And that is one of the more personal ones. And that is, what is one social norm that you want to push back on? Doesn't have to be related to
just
what
one
we were just talking about. What was that?
Allie's like,
is it just one?
Just one.
Just one social norm I want to push back on. What do I choose?
Oh, I think I know mine. It's funny. It just came to me just now. That like softness is a superpower.
Mm.
And I'm working on this every day. And I was a Division I athlete. I'm a lawyer. I have chosen a lot of really intense, really like strength is what you should project all the time.
Yep.
And that's all that matters. And I've got it all together and everybody should see that I'm so strong and so tough, whatever. Like, and like actually just softening just a little bit, softening into where you are at, softening into where someone else is at, opens up a world of vulnerability and magic and power and potential that doesn't come when you're, strength is all that matters. That's something I'm working on.
Damn.
I love that. Again, it's really hard for me to choose just one. So I'm like,
what are you vehement about right now?
What's that?
What are you feeling most vehement about right now?
I think for me, it is personal. I really like pushing back on traditional family structures. I am a single person. I'm like open to partnership, but I've been single a lot of my life by choice. And a lot of traditional financial planning speaks to the nuclear family, and a very traditional lifestyle that I think a lot of people in the Western world have been expected to want, because this is how you should want it. Yeah. And I think pushing back on like what I think I should have, a husband, a couple kids, I should own my house. I mean, maybe if that's what you really want, but I just want to I really love working with women. I really love working with single women. I'm a single woman. And so I just want to put a little nugget out there that, and just, remind women that they are powerful on their own and they can be individual and they can create a lot if they want to, or if they've been put in a position where now maybe they're like single, not totally by choice, because a lot of times it's painful getting there. But I just want to say that that's okay. And it's okay to like create a chosen family. It is okay to live a non-traditional life. I guess that's what it is. It's just like living beyond, that traditional life that, again, it's okay if that aligns with your values, but I never really aligned with the traditional life of how I'm supposed to like want things. And it took me a really long time to be like, oh, that's okay. And so now I try and use my business as a place to, support people who want a non-traditional life, right? And just let it be about what matters to you and let that be the thing, it's.
And let go of the shoulds. I think you said out earlier in that, like the wanting the things you should want. Yeah. I think that's exactly like questioning that. Yeah. Even the exercise of doing that is a new thought. Like,
yes. And maybe you'll come back to like, oh, but I do want like 2 kids in a house. Yeah. Great. Now you have that clarity and you're very actively choosing it. But you also might realize like, I want something a little different. I want a partner and I want us to have separate houses. Like, great. Who cares? But like own what you really want. So like permission to just want what you want, even if it's not the norm. I guess that's kind of what I feel vehement about right now.
Oh, freaking yeah. Could not be more on board with this. Oh my God. We have covered so much ground. Thank you so much, Alex and Allie. It's the double A's.
Yeah.
You called us both Al and we would have both
Al and Al.
Double Al.
Yeah.
For making this extra freaking badass. You can reach out to them and catch that brand health check in the episode description. And to you, my badass listener, thanks for tuning in to the Art of Positioning podcast. If you love this episode, a 5-star review goes a long way. Now, go get badass.
They call me crazy because I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
No more excuses. No more branding band-aids.
No. I'm basically, the outside is finally catching up to the inside of the business. Because I grassrooted the whole thing from like for the last 2 years, where it's just like all the original names I came up with were taken. And I'm like, I just need a name. I'll change it later. And I was like, I'll change the website later. I'll get a designer later. And so now after, a couple of years, it finally made sense to be like, great, let's put a little bit more intention and strategy behind the look of the brand. Like being a creative and having the artistic background, like to me, I think branding is so important. It's like the emotional heartbeat of a business, and because my business is so different, I really wanted to work with like strategists to be like, how do we really, again, like make the outside match the inside? And change the name, because like I've never wanted my name in it, because I plan to sell one day, and so I'm like, it's not about me, it's about you. So this was kind of like planned the whole time, and I think when you invest in branding too early, you're gonna change it anyway. And so now I have like enough data and information, I think, to be more specific. So it's like rebranding, but it's kind of like branding, because I never really branded in the first place.
Yeah, it sounds more like you're like pivoting. The art of positioning. Let's freaking go.